this, and I'm wondering if there's any changes we need to see, Vedi, from Game 1 for G2.
Well, a lot has happened. Nautilus has been banned instead of the Nico, and with the Kalista priority, T1 have said, all right, fine, we'll take Nico. Want to carry his specialties. Varus Nico is going to be the bot lane, the expected bot lane anyway, unless that is flex. There's always the possibility, but it's unlikely. The question is G2 going to run back the draft from the previous game, or are they going to shake things up? Will we see something like the Xin Zhao, perhaps? What are we going to see? The Rek'Sai locked in for Yike. Now, this might seem strange to some international viewers, but domestically, this was something that G2 was playing throughout the playoffs. They typically use it as a flex between top and jungle, but they still value it highly as a jungle pick.
So we also don't necessarily know if the Camille is going to pick. Because only the seconds that one is a bit more of a no-brainer.
Oh, wow, okay.
Where that is going to go. So the priority here being paid. I'm wondering whether T1 are going to keep hidden where this Nico is going to go. In the past, they've also played a whole lot of Nico Nocturne comps, so with Faker on Nico and then the Nocturne added as well. So I feel like if they, which I would love, just pick a counter pick for Zeus, so you already know the top lane matchup, then you can maybe force out a Nocturne ban or look towards that if that is the direction you want to go. And this, though, would be a very different direction. Is incredible into the Kalista specifically, does have a lot of value there, and I do
still
think...
be a flex, who knows?
You know what?
Taliyah support.
Sure enough. I can see him do it.
Seismic shove just locks him up.
It's very unlikely, but always going to leave it out there as a possibility.
Camille banned out though by T1, even with the Zac already picked. The flexibility of Camille support still something that is on the back of their minds, around their headspace.
What will G2 choose to prioritize here? The Twisted Fate ban, perhaps? Vayne, okay, that does make becoming more popular. We've been seeing amongst many of the Eastern top laners.
So the question is, do you ban Gwen as well because you saw it hovered? Or do you say, aha, you baited us a lot in Game 1, now you're baiting us again perhaps with that Gwen hover?
Wouldn't surprise me. Zeus also has, I think, a mixed history of the Gwen. There's been times where he's been great at it, there's been times where it hasn't really been the case. So we'll see if that actually comes through. Gwen also doesn't feel like she's in that strong of a spot at the moment, even though obviously self-explanatory if you do end up playing, which is, we haven't talked about the lane swaps yet. We don't know for sure that this is one going to go to top lane, because it could theoretically also be a Zac support, particularly with the fact that we have seen G2 also be very happy to try and go for these flex picks.
Do really like the Poppy ban though, good against Zac, good against Kalista, good against Rek'Sai already. You don't even need anyone else with a dash on your in your team for that to be a very solid ban. Viego locked in now for Oner, leaving that top lane counter for last, we assume. G2 looking towards likely support in mid. Aurelion Sol, Azir, both still available to them. They want to play that into the Taliyah. LeBlanc also we've been seeing quite a lot of and hearing some rumors from scrims, but instead Orianna locked in alongside Leona, channeling Ignar from the Misfits series all the way back. Is further of battle back in the game, Vedi?
No. Lethal Tempo Leona is the new go. No, I'm kidding.
Hey.
But wow, okay, Mickey bringing out another unique support, not in the sense that he doesn't play the champion, but not typically what we've been seeing in the meta so far. They wanted another form of engage. A lot of the damage reliance going to be coming from Hans Summit and Caps. I feel like last game it was very difficult for Hans Summit to get the damage out that he needed to. He was very outranged in the fights, and he had a front line that he just couldn't get through. Let's see if things are going to be different this time around, because Keria support I think is going to be very difficult to deal with once again. While they do have a lot of engaged tools on the side of G2, I think T1 with Gumayusi's Varus and Faker's Taliyah, you're going to run into very similar problems of if you can't get onto the backline, T1 are going to run away with these fights.
Yeah, it's also, as you already mentioned, Hans Summit in the last game, it was really hard for him to get in effective range. This time around, he's playing into Taliyah, and there was the Nico as well. So going to, again, be tough. I'm also looking for Hans Summit and Mickey to link up a little bit more. I feel like there were a lot of opportunities where the aggressive potential of the Fate Skull wasn't really utilized in a way that could have really helped. One thing that I do like in terms of adaptation from G2, as much as I like the counter picks, after that game, it did feel like when it came to actual team fights in mid-game, they didn't quite know how to play it out, right? Like when it comes to the roams.
Wasn't that good either.
Well,
I both of them, I'll agree with.
Okay, yeah, fair
I didn't mean that as an excuse. I was saying that. No. I really didn't mean it as an excuse. I was like, they didn't play them well, and their comp was bad at them.
Yeah,
you know, yeah.
It was both. And in this, they do have a lot more straight raw team fighting power, great ball delivery systems. So we'll see if that's going to be enough to match T1 in a team fight. This Ornn also really big because T1 didn't actually have any engage, and Ornn is about as good as it gets.
long-range engage helps you out a huge amount, and then the follow-up, seismic shove, you've got the chain of corruption, you've got Pop Blossom coming out from Keria. We have to keep our eyes to see where Keria is on the map as we make our way into Game 2 of this series.
I will say, though, that T1, once again, I feel like I've just got comfort across the board. Maybe you could argue that Zeus, you don't typically associate him with Ornn, not to say that he can't play it.
Yeah, no, that's especially recently, 100% on
But you kind of look at the other 4 champions. Viego for Oner, Faker's Taliyah, Gumayusi Varus, like they're all. You know what I mean? It's just this is such a T1 draft that they should feel extremely comfortable and confident in this position. And so again, pressure's going to be on G2. Obviously, they're not coming into this series as the favorites. There are definitely believers out there that G2 can do some damage, but that's assuming G2 can demonstrate the ceiling of what this roster is capable of. And I definitely think that we've seen some very high highs of this G2 roster. The question is, can you pull that off against this T1 roster? Defending world champions coming in as a bit of an underdog when it comes in the context of MSI. I think we can all agree Gen G and BLG the kind of front runners for the tournament, but T1 a roster and team that you can never afford to count out.
Yeah, it's also T1's, you know, the expectation on T1 is really weird, given the last 2 years of this roster. So it's always like, even if they don't win LCK, which they haven't since spring 2022, regardless, you're always going to go in internationals and be like, ooh. They're just a little bit built different when it comes to those.
They have an aura.
They do have an aura, and the man on your screen has a lot to do with that. Do want to note that it's interesting. I was actually wondering whether we were going to see any swaps occur. Not going to be the case here. And to be fair, I feel like the Zac into Ornn matchup also, particularly once you get a couple of points in W, I do think you have a decent trading power early on, though. Yeah. That'll be a little bit respectful.
I mean, they're both those, you know the meme that happened, the assassin tank DPS?
Yeah,
I feel like Zac can also fit in a very similar moniker, maybe not to the same degree, but we've seen him be a very effective lane bully against many champions, and it's largely due to his sustain. If we turn our attention to bot lane,
Miky going in, looking to engage, catches Keria, who has to flash away, flash for flash so far. Heal used by Keria alongside the Ignite from Miky. Miky does have Hex Flash though, while Keria does not, so G2 will be happy enough with that trade.
One thing though, if we look at the jungle pathing here, Oner is actually just doing a full clear from top towards bot, so might be looking to go for a play towards Miky. This wave is going to be shoving in, and Yike can either choose to cover for his bot lane as they shove in, because it is still kind of hard, right? Varus still has a lot of power, or he's got to take his topside camp. So we'll see what Yike will end up doing. Might even look for a play on mid here.
Honestly, was expecting a stacked wave into potential dive bot, but Yike trying to navigate a way around that ward on the Raptor camp. Will avoid being detected for now, but as you rightly said, he's going to be on the top side of the map, which is a little scary for Hans Sama and Miky. They're playing extremely aggressive. Perhaps their game plan is to try and get this push in and then look for an early reset. Miky trying to garner some early information. He needs to be careful, though. Still only level 2.
Tangle Barb's going to hit onto him. Gumayusi chasing in Miky, already down to half HP. The chase continues from T1 as Oner joins the battle. Hans Sama with the rend on Guma, trying to get the slow down. Oner still chasing forward. Miky no flash. Tangle Barb, Spectral Maw, Keria on the board.
Your jungler is topside. You can't play that aggressive into the enemy jungle if you don't have flash.
I mean, we were just talking about it, right? Like, I guess the game plan there was to get that push in, go for the early base. Miky didn't have any wards in his toolkit, so I'm not sure what kind of information he was trying to garner, but the fact that he was only level 2 as well meant that he didn't have his W up, those extra resistances, and T1 could chase him down. First blood secured for T1.
And often you'll think, oh, it's only the support getting the kill. Well, let me tell you about Keria's Nico. This guy often outdamages his carries in a team fight. He has a 100% win record on the champion, and it is going to be very difficult for G2 to keep track of him. As you can see, currently coming out onto the map as an accessory Varus. Sounds like an organ that you might have. Well, that's just my accessory Varus, actually.
No, but this is the curse of Guma, right? Because if you know the SpongeBob meme where Squidward's just looking out and he's like seeing them have, that's Zeus and Keria. It's like, oh, Camille support, Vayne top, and he's like, big Varus again. It's fine. I'll just Levelity Varus for what, like the 3rd year in a row? It's okay. I'll just play it again.
Great vision control from T1. Spots the roam from Miky.
Keria coming in from the side, Oner joining in as well. Yike looking for the damage. Miky just walking straight forward here. Faker still holding on to the seismic shove, and Miky is locked up with it. Miky rooted with the tangle barbs, and he walked right into his own death. When Faker comes knocking, you do not answer that door. Miky 0-2 now.
So much hesitation on the side of G2. It was unclear whether they wanted to fight or whether they wanted to disengage, but T1 once again find a punish onto Miky. They're going to take away the Raptors too. Oh, smite will come through from Yike. But T1 punishing that early flash from Miky. You'd think that the game plan would be get the summoners early bot and then commit to those plays, but with Yike pathing away from the bot side of the map, and Oner just working with Keria to find these early picks, T1 find themselves with a 1k gold lead already.
And in game 1, the question was, can G2 use a lead to snowball the game away from T1? Now in game 2, the question, if you're an EU fan, is can G2 come back from a deficit? Because already 1,000 gold behind. Keria has 1-0-1, getting fed on this Nico. Faker again in the mid lane, getting fed in the early game. And T1 will be very happy with this state of affairs.
Yeah, it also becomes about how do T1 play with leads, and the answer is very oppressively, unfortunately, as they are, I'd argue, one of our most, at least when it comes to the top tier teams in the LCK, by far the most aggressive. When it comes to just continuously looking for plays, Caps does have his flasher, should be fine, even if it is forces to cancel.
Portugal coming down as well. Broken Blade still has the passive, looking for the brittle. Zeus flashed forward, but the unstable matter for Broken Blade is enough to heal him back up. Zeus burned his flash, burned his ult, and Broken Blade just walks away.
That was a heavy commitment from
Big
Zeus.
win, yeah, for Broken Blade.
I'm kind of surprised. Now the bot lane dive for Oner.
There he is, stepping forward. There's the Weaver's wall in by Faker as well. Miky does have the flash back up, looking for the stun, but can't find it in time. Oner possesses him. And underneath the tower, he is fine as roses. T1 starting to retreat away. Caps was spotted on vision as he walked into this tribush.
Oh, and I wish that instead they would just go for the shoving the wave mid and trading a plate. Like, by the time G2 arrives, the play is already done. And in the case T1 overcommits there, you might get a punish opportunity if they also go for the dive on Hans, but isn't the case. And T1 basically get that bot side play for free, courtesy of Faker's Weaver's wall.
Flash away by Faker as Yike is looking to collapse. The shockwave coming in.
Okay, he paid something.
Yeah,
but
something out of it.
It's the... My issue with what G2's doing here is, like, based on how the bot lane was playing, you would expect them to actually invest in attacking the bot lane, especially with a champion like Leona that just has such great setup. If you can get an early cleanse out from Gumo, work with Yike to then set up some dives, maybe have Orianna have control over the mid wave so that the Taliyah can't roam, like. But instead, the opposite has happened, where Oner was the one that was pathing towards bot. There was no Yike to contest him. They get the early pick onto Miky, and then they just keep punishing the fact that he doesn't have a flash. And then when they have a stacked wave, they use Faker's Taliyah wall to roam down towards bot. And, like, this is how you punish bot lane. This is exactly what I think G2 should have been trying to do, and T1 demonstrating exactly how you can snowball a lead in the early game.
That's why they are the current world champions, why they're widely seen as one of the best teams in the world currently. We said Gen G and BOG may be sitting a little bit above them, although after BOG's performance yesterday, I think some questions have been asked. You can say it was, you know, some happy games. Maybe PSG just overperformed. We'll have to wait and see for the upper bracket. T1 looking to make their way there to match up against the LPL #1 seed.
One of the big changes, as we already mentioned in draft, but I want to reiterate it again, is that I do think the composition of G2 has a lot more straight-up 5v5 power. Now, it's not to say that T1 doesn't, but this is a very straightforward Leona and or Zek go in, you follow up with the Ori ball, you have a lot of backline threat with your Rek'Sai, and Hansama can also get Miky out of sticky situations, giving you even more freedom and try and engage on the plays, although into Taliyah I can always feel a little bit risky.
Look, I mean, again though, T1 setting up for a bot lane dive, you can see both Oner and Faker in the river, and even if they don't go for the dive, they have control over the dragon. Caps now looking to try and push in this wave so that he can at least get something back, but T1 with fantastic bot lane control. Yike is forced to cover.
Good reaction flash from Gumayusi. Could see it coming and reacted accordingly. Now Oner moving across. Miky's flash down once again. Gumayusi doesn't have one of his own. Yike just farming his Krugs. Oner covering, I think, just for one more wave. I expect Gumayusi's calling saying, if I get this wave, I can get my next item spike. So TP to the top lane by Zeus. As Broken Blade's been doing relatively well in that top lane, has about a 10 CS lead.
I will say, we think back to last game, and Hans Sama couldn't hit, right? He was hitting into an Alistar, and he was hitting into a Xin Zhao, and he did 0 damage to that front line, and he didn't have the range to access the back line. You're fighting into an Ornn. Kalista typically is not good into tanks.
And a Taliyah.
Yeah, and
a Nico.
Yeah, and so I'm just kind of like, again, you've gone for the on-hit into a composition where I think you're running into very similar problems where it's going to be difficult to actually land damage onto the backline. So it becomes this race of whose front line dies first. It's Zac versus Ornn, Leona versus Nico, and who can land that better wombo combo, who can get that a better initial burst off. And ultimately, I will say that while T1 finds themselves with a lead right now, this game is ultimately going to boil down to the team fights. And how that fight goes, the early ones will determine a lot in the outcome of this game.
I think the game might boil down to the fact that G2 are pushing forward here in the Pop Blossom. We'll find Mickey Tangle Barbs for this follow-up. There's the Spectrum more. Call of the Forge coming out as Mickey tries to turn it back around. The shockwave possibility from Caps. But Mickey already falling low as Oner possesses his body. A 3-man shockwave into the dive forward. Is it enough for G2? Broken Blade fighting Faker in the bottom lane. It's a 1-for-1 trade on the top side. Faker weavers walls his way out. Broken Blade no TP. Faker has his.
A crazy battle in the river. Mickey still doesn't have his level 6, so T1 tried to punish that. They're able to find an initial pick, but a nice combo from Caps and Yike turns it around, and they end up getting a kill back.
It's a fight over grubs. G2 want to get 6 once again, want to have that pushing power. Keria doing everything he can to keep Yike low, to
Mickey's
keep
back.
Yike away. Mickey's back, as you say, now has the level 6. Oner coming to join the fray, doesn't have his Heartbreaker ultimate, but with Yike being low, he can, of course, sustain through his jungle. I think G2 might back off from this one for now. Faker looking towards the top side. Caps has snuck into that second bush.
Crucially, though, because Faker had to use his ultimate against Broken Blade, he can't use it to cheat towards the skirmish. Might get caught here.
Faker does have his flash, but he's knocked up, locked up, and shut out of the fight by Yike. Well played by G2. Caps sneaking into that bush meant that the collapse could happen from Yike.
Gentlemen, it's strangely eerie how T1 was 4 kills up, and now G2 is the one finding kills back. And pick after pick, gonna convert this into the grubs as well.
And they're still looking to contest.
I think you just want 4 hit. Back away from it. T1 trying to stop them from getting 6. Well, 6 is the new breakpoint, right? 4 and 6 with the changes. It looks like T1 were trying to stop them from taking them. Can't do so. Caps pushing in the top lane, so it will be 6 in the end for G2.
The big thing here, though, is that T1 is dropping a lot of waves, trying to contest this objective that isn't really that essential. Caps has just been shoving relentless. Because Faker ended up dying, he's now at a 30 CS deficit as Faker.
Still has the flash here. Void Rush used to dodge away from the seismic shove, but now Yike is very deep. Heartbreaker in by Oner, and Yike just tunnels out of there. Secret tunnel, secret tunnel. Yike manages to escape.
I think he was just trying to get the flash out from Faker. Nice response the moment he saw Oner. Ends up being an exchange of ultis, but Faker holds on to his flash. Great great patience is the word I was looking for from Faker, as that was a scary situation for him to find himself in.
I mean, Faker's in a scary position in this game. 1,100 gold behind, only 95 farm at 13 minutes. Caps leading the gold chart. And game 1 did start off a little bit like that as well, with Caps getting the lead. We'll see if G2 can continue this swing back in their favor.
Big thing here is that Faker has basically been first BB bully them out of the bot side waves, had to force his ultimate, then he walks towards top, ends up getting taken down as well, or ends up actually getting taken down. And now the gold lead that T1 had has fully evaporated, so is going to look like it might, as you already pointed out, Vedi, now on even footing, gonna come down to how do the actual 5v5s play out, because these are still, you know, more skirmishy than they are straight up tanks in the front line, try and get as much damage down as you point out. And Fed Orianna, as far as, you know, front to backing, I think you're going to be feeling great about.
I mean, for sure. It's I'm excited to see how these fights play out. Right now, it's T1 setting up for a dragon. I mean, I say that they've kind of got wards littered across the map, but I think G2's in a better position to contest the Herald with the pressure that Caps has. Mickey, all right, he's going to be fine. But I think G2 can afford to sacrifice this dragon, get the Herald, use it to break open the mid tower, and kind of use this pressure to then start moving into T1 side of the map.
T1 is just dropping here. A lot of that, or rather, is just letting the turret go. Zeus is there now, but the turret is going to get taken down nonetheless, and G2 now back in the lead. T1, they're doing a lot of posturing here, but without Zeus, their engage isn't actually that good. He's the only one that can start fights unless you find a flank, unless you find... Yeah, exactly, or unless Guma finds someone with an arrow, which shouldn't happen. That's the one thing, though, that I think G2 have to be really, really careful about. The amount of like single target lockdown and burst damage that's available, which can start off the Viego resets. That is the one thing that they really got to be careful about when we get to these fights.
In teamfights, there's always the risk of overextension as well. The Pop Blossom will separate your backline from your frontline. It becomes very difficult for G2 to actually effectively play a fight.
Yeah, here's what I will say. I talked about it earlier that like, I had some concerns around Hanzo actually being able to deal damage in the fights. But when we think back to the regular season of G2 playing, when Broken Blade was on... Oh, hang on a second. Keria's been spotted here.
Yike looking for him, goes forward, Keria flashes away, Drake secured. Broken Blade diving onto the back line. It's only Keria for now. There's the Pop Blossom, TP's behind. As Keria will fall first, the TP behind from T1. Not going to look for any more of a collapse. Faker just investing there. G2 can continue to press in. Broken Blade, channel the E, doesn't go for it. Faker forced off towards the top side by Caps. It's a 2-level disadvantage for Faker right now. He's been starved of XP. It's actually about a level and a quarter if you look at how far Faker is towards that 6. Faker holds the flash, flashes the wall, and the Zenith Blade just short from Miky.
I think that's still a decent trade, though, trading his support flash. Oh, Hansama.
Faker going in with the Weaver's Wall. Hansama side steps to seismic shove. Oner coming from the bottom side as well as the Call of the Port got his flashed by Hansama. In the end, turns out being a couple of flashes for a couple there.
The thing about Faker's play is it keeps G2 still on the map. Remember that they made that Dragon play, haven't actually had an opportunity to reset, whereas Guma is already making his way back out. This could have been a window where T1 maybe could have taken a tempo advantage, but G2 immediately move up towards top. They still have Hansama clear out mid. Bot is still pushing in their favor, and they're still going to look to try and contest this Herald.
Arrowed path in by Oner. Could just look for the smite. Standing still. Not going to be seen by the tremor sense from Yike. Hansama dashes towards him. I have that exclamation mark above his head showing that Oner is closest. Guma, oh, beautiful footwork from Guma. Put him on stage at the Ritz. That was gorgeous, dancing away from the elastic slingshot and the stretching strike.
It's now back-to-back, though. The team has gotten a pretty substantial early lead, and it is then evaporated. Very different circumstances this time around. I do think that for T1 it's important to know that the Ornn is always going to eventually generate insane amounts of value. So I can imagine if G2 still feel the need to play a little bit aggressive.
Does still have the flash. Mickey's on his way here. Flash away, but the Heartbreaker breaks the hearts of Europe. Yike's still on the chase, though. Oner has no flash. Broken Blade coming in from the side. Let's bounce, baby! Faker locked up. Oner sent packing. G2 get 2.
I don't think the game plan was for Caps to die, but G2 make it work. 2 for 1. Gumayusi and Keria, they were on the rotation up to try and turn this play around. It's not going to work out. The Herald is going to be dropped as G2 try to convert this into 2 towers. The gold lead is quickly ballooning in G2's favor as game 2, the momentum is shifting.
Miky looking for Faker here. Pops the ultimate. It's actually Keria, sorry. Massive Pop Blossom. Guma trying to turn it around onto Hansama. Can't quite get close enough. Another piercing arrow might be enough to get through him as Broken Blade hits the tower. Can't do damage to that one.
Oh, that's
the mid lane tower still stands.
I was really confused then, but that made sense. Thumbs up from Broken Blade. He's going to be spotted on all this vision, and Guma's going to respect it. Man, Guma's so crazy good. His positioning and his footwork is so incredible to watch. Able to outplay Hansama and Miky in that fight, but let's look back at this top play.
As we take another look here, you see how ready G2 is. It's flipping a classic T1 play, which is the mid laner's bait around. Yes, Caps end up going down, but you're still going to take that trade, especially because Oner was actually getting slowly more and more fed. Instead, with Yike and Miky already there, could have killed a bit. The presence of Broken Blade guarantees that they're also able to pick up Faker, even with the amount of self-heal that the Taliyah has. The breaking point, though, for me is going to be, do they win this the Infernal Drake? Yeah. Because that is going to be, if T1 ends up winning that and gets Soul Point, then I think the game becomes incredibly hard to play out for G2.
Shockwave in by Caps as Faker's pulled back. Seraph's there. Yike coming in from across the wall as well. The smite can go in with the Void Rush, but Caps takes the kill. G2 collapses. T1 were looking for something on the top side. A 2,500 gold lead now. Yike 4-0-1 on this Rek'Sai.
The positions have been completely reversed. It's Faker who's having a rough game as Caps is getting close now to a 2-level lead over Faker. 1.7k the gold lead, and Caps is playing a calm and controlled game as he works with Yike to just attack and punish these side lanes.
This is the mid-game G2 have been working on all year long. Jump in by Broken Blade. Does still have the passive TP coming forward as well. Broken Blade able to get out with a flash and the lights bounce. He's put into the cell division. Will T1 continue to collapse. You've got the Call of the Forge God, you've got the Pop Blossom. Keria looking for the flank, can't quite land. The Tangled Barbs instead elects to a Blooming Burst.
A lot committed with the Dragon spawning in 25 seconds. G2 had to commit a lot, trying to keep my eyes on Caps. That ultimate available in 5 seconds for Broken Blade. No flash, no ult, no flash on Caps. Summoners available for Faker. Zeus is gonna get the upgrades. I feel like this is a scary position for G2 to fight, but it looks like they're going to go for it.
The one thing that G2 do still have is full control here. They also have a ward as Guma.
Cleanse. No flash. Holds on to it wisely.
That might be the Drake, though, and that's a big thing. We'll see, G2, I think they might want to really commit to this, but no, Guma is not going to actually make this back happen.
Faker's use of the wall could be massive here. G2 pushes in mid. The Dragon is started, but it's T1 that have access to the river.
Broken Blade's going for the flank. Let's bounce, about to come back off cooldown. Call of the Forge God for Zeus. Broken Blade sneaks in, seen by Zeus and Keria. Starts to back away, Dragon down to 4,000. Oner trying to get in for the smite. You have Ren smite, and it's secured by G2. Baker puts the Weaver's wall down and separates Hansama and Caps from the team. Broken Blade dives in, and might just have to jump out across the wall here. Call of the Forge God trying to protect Baker. Mickey falling low, dive in by Oner, but the Fate's Call will pull Mickey to safety. Keria continues to step in, looks for the Tangled Barbs, can't land it. G2 get the Drake and get out.
Also get Prio here towards the mid wave. And without Zeus' ultimate, you see there, T1's engage really isn't that great. Keria doesn't actually find backline access. And a crucial point for G2 as they deny the soul point. That could have been T1 putting themselves in a comfy position where they can threaten the Baron, where they can just start trading. But it's not going to be the case.
That was a weird fight, boys. I don't know if you noticed this, but Hans literally flashed on top of Faker, and then Zeus was like, I have ulti, I think I can collapse. But the rest of T1 couldn't actually follow because there was a whole other skirmish. It was kind of awkward for both sides, given that Faker kind of split the map with his ulti. And we're not going to get a replay because no one ended up dying, but it was a very strange set of affairs that really highlights what you were talking about, Chronicler. When the engage kind of disappears from Broken Blade, Mickey, and Zeus, the teams just kind of look at each other.
Just standing there menacingly.
So ultimately, G2 will walk away with the victory because they hold on to the gold lead. They secure the Dragon, deny that soul point from T1. And now things like the Baron become a point of contention. And you've got to remember that while neither team have the fastest Baron, T1 is very scary at being able to sneak these Barons away at a time that you least expect.
I think importantly for T1, Keria still has flash. Only Faker's burnt his flash, so if the fight does begin, you have that backline access. Hansama, no flash, no cleanse. Broken Blade, no flash as well. Will have his passive up for the next fight as he continues to push Zeus in the bot lane. And what a series Broken Blade is having so far. You talked a little bit about it in Game 1, Vedi. His TSM days seem to be behind him, where internationally perhaps he struggled. Over the last couple of years, he has really evolved as a player. Here, he's almost 2,000 gold ahead of Zeus in what has essentially been a tank versus tank matchup without a huge amount of interaction.
I will say, a much better performance from Caps this time around. The debate so much last year was around his individual performance, and we rated him very highly coming into this tournament. Hansama in some danger.
Hansama, no flash, no cleanse. Side steps the size. McShelvin. Baker has no flash of his own. TP comes in. Broken Blade going to join the fight. Void rush forward. Baker goes down. And now the Call of the Forge God is more of a prayer sent to the heavens to try and escape. Caps is on the flank. And I've seen a shockwave land here before. Caps steps in. Pop Blossom. What? It's beautiful. But they do not have the damage. The shockwave from Caps binds them all as G2 wipe away T1.
And Guma is going to desperately try to run. He might make it out, but the rest of his team is evaporated. The Baron on the board here for G2. The attempted turn from T1. Way too overeager. And G2 punish.
It was initiated by Faker, and as he falls, his team was quick to follow. G2 win out on the team fight. And it starts with them trying to find this collapse onto Hans. Patient play from him. He knows that he can't use his passive here. Faker's forced without flash to get dumped on by the top jungle duo. Mickey locks down Oner, but then we see Keria with a fantastic ultimate, thinking that the fight is turned, but then Caps' shockwave connects onto 3, and Guma just doesn't have the damage to win the fight for T1.
Oner, I think, tried to flash over it, try to get out of range, and then he could have gotten the reset. I don't know if that would have been enough, but the play doesn't end up working out. And now the gold lead 5k here for G2.
And you just see how much healing G2 have in fights as well. Zach, Rek'Sai, so good at just buffing themselves back up. So difficult for T1 to get through that front line. Now, as you say, a 5,000 gold lead, Dragon up in 50 seconds. Mickey caught out just a little bit with that blooming burst. He'll take a chunk. The Baron a possibility. And G2 have to be worried as well. If he go for the Dragon, are T1 just going to sneak a Baron?
And you already highlighted Vedi, but when that play happened, I thought Faker had stopwatch. Normally when he goes for plays like this, it really is with him in mind that they're going to collapse on me, got to be ready. Instead, Hansama uses the most overpowered ability in the game, which is walking. And as a result, that's an LCK classic. You know, the walk strategy ends up paying dividends there, particularly given the fact that Taliyah relies on getting you in that seismic shove. And it really is, in the last game we saw him recuperate. I feel like on the Taliyah, Faker hasn't been able to consistently reach the highs that he has on his Orianna, on his Azir, and we're seeing some of that here now in the upcoming fight. No flash for Guma, and no control for T1.
T1 are the ones with their backs against the wall. Guma
baby.
Feels like a very... Oh, hang on a second. Broken Blade.
Onto Faker once again. Faker flashes away. The stretching strike will pull him back, though. And Oner might be the first target as Yike sinks his teeth into the fight. Faker now forced away. The Weavers will pull back. Broken Blade on this Zac has not given T1 a moment to breathe. 8-0 for Yike and Baron on the cards.
The top jungle duo is just a diving menace. Domestically, questions were thrown out around what does this Rek'Sai even do? Gentlemen, it's 8-0-3. It's been involved in 11 of G2's 12 kills, and it is making it difficult for T1 to play the game.
It's the mid-jungle 2v2 of T1 that is struggling so much. We see here the bot side, and Zeus trying to maybe contest for a Dragon, but there's just no way
it's
that
really
it's ever going to work out.
It's really smart from G2 as well. Hansama and Yike making sure you get the Baron, and then the rest of the team making sure T1 can't just sneak away Soul Point from under your noses. I wonder if G2 will look for a reset off this Baron, or whether Yike's going to reset. Looks like Hansama's going to go mid, catch that wave that's pushing in, and with the push in the bottom lane, it becomes so much harder now for T1 to actually get back out in a position where they can contest the Drake.
I think what's crucial... Okay, a bit of a visual bug. I think what's crucial about what we're seeing as well, let's dive into the replay first. Broken Blade snuck his way into this fog of war. He spots them out with the Rek'Sai, and he gets the knockup, forces the flash out from Faker, and then the stretching strike into the ultimate combo. Means that T1 lose their jungle, lose their mid laner, and it secures the Baron and the Dragon. And again, like, I don't have time to explain.
Being used. Solo play on the backline as Mickey dives deep here. G2 maybe overextending, but the flash forward from Yike for the double knockup. Slap their heads together. G2 have had enough of this game. Pop Blossom comes out. The Cap's still very healthy on the backline. Broken Blade still has his passive. Another stretching strike on Oner as Hansama begins to dance on him. Stunned up for the second. Faker able to kill off Hansama. G2 maybe a tiny bit greedy because Faker puts the Weaver's wall down. Broken Blade dashing in, locked up with the Unraveled Earth. G2 could overstep here. Instead, they retreat. They still have the Baron for a minute and a half.
Still get the inhib. Still get the inhib turret. Still a lot of pressure here. Hans dying, though, is going to take a little bit of venom out of this. They still be able to pick themselves up the second Drake. And we saw there again, Faker was pushing in the top side. The TP not in time. If he was there earlier, maybe could have made a difference. Not going to be the case, and we'll see what T1 can do on the cross map. But now, almost 10k gold behind. G2 looking to bring this to 1-1.
I mean, it's just the Broken Blade and Yike show, isn't it? They initiate onto Zeus, of all people. He has Caps at his back, chipping away at his HP bar. They tried to punish them underneath the tower. Caps does get knocked up, but the Chain of Corruption follow-up is the only thing there. Mickey then with a dive, knows that he has the Kalista to drag him out to safety. And then the flash, two-man knockup. Gumayusi, no flash to get away. They finally take him down for the first time in this series, I believe. And G2, while this may have been a bit of an overcommitment, it also sends a message to T1 that, hey, we can go toe-to-toe. Oh. Bit of a misplay there from Hansama. But G2 making their mark here in game 2.
10,000 gold. The difference between these two teams. The head-to-head record, 15-10 for T1. G2 starting looking for their first win since 2020 in a best-of series. It's a long time ago. It was a best-of-1 win. It's apart from the Red Bull event, obviously, but you know. perhaps slightly less competitive
I mean,
G2
it was fun. I had a great time watching it.
Zeus said he wants his vengeance for it. Now G2 looking to even out the series, pushing for mid, for top, Broken Blade in mid, answered by Oner. Cap's going to take a bit of a chunk here. Oner though, can you answer the power of Broken Blade Heartbreaker across into the Blast Cone, the chase from Yike. The Blast Cone and Broken Blade reads Oner like a book. Miky comes in from the side, there's the stun, Broken Blade slaps him around the head and gets another kill on the board.
That might be the sign for G2 to actually look for the end. No Viego resets take so much threat out of this composition. Their lead is immense. Bot lane Inip is still standing, and Taliyah is always a little bit scary to dive, but you gotta imagine they gotta try and push for the end here.
Weaver's wall down, Caps isolated. G2 still pushing 4 strong through the mid lane. Seismic shove going wide. There is Faker flashing forward, and he's met with a spear through his heart. G2 find another how long thrower. 17 seconds, 5v3 now. G2 might just go double in hit base. Could be a little greedy, and they've often been in the LEC. We'll see if it continues on the international stage. Keria trying to get in with that Blossom. No flash for him. First Nexus tower down. Finds Cap. Call of the Forge God coming down as well, but the stopwatch will buy a second for the G2 mid laner. And Oner is just deleted by Hansamo on the backline. Guma next up. He will escape to the safety of the fountain, but that's where he'll watch his Nexus fall as G2 even out the series at 1-1.
A convincing win for G2. They'll need to keep their composure as they won out on the team fights. But a big win for G2 to show that they can go toe-to-toe with the Titans of T1.
Takeaway here is early game leads are bait. Do not trust them. Because
what is the worst early game team you can pick that scales well?
I mean, that's where you got to go towards.
Yeah,
you know, just go and on a more serious note, really the big thing here is Faker and Oner with this honestly really strong combo of the Taliyah as well as the Viego it not working out, and the parallels between Caps in game 1 going for a couple of roams that didn't work out, Faker getting caught in bot and getting actually killed towards the top side, set him on a deficit that he was never able to climb out of. And they're gonna have to step it up if T1 wants to